Hi everyone, how are you all doing? Welcome back to the channel. For those who don't know me, my name is Bruno Villas, and I share real criminal cases here on the internet. And if you're just arriving here now and aren't subscribed to the channel yet, I invite you to subscribe and activate the bell so you don't miss notifications. Because that way, every time I post a new video, YouTube will notify you and you can come watch it with me. I also invite you to follow me on social media because I'm always interacting with you there. But now let's get to what matters and let's dive into today's case. As usual, folks, before we start today's case, I need to give you a warning. This video is documentary in nature and was produced using information available on the internet, compiled into a video. The purpose of this documentary is not to shock anyone, much less disrespect the people involved in the case. As you know, on this channel, all facts are narrated with the utmost respect possible. Alejandra Chub was born in 1986 in the city of Telaman, which belongs to the department of Alta Verapaz in Guatemala. She was a woman of indigenous origin and was raised by her older siblings because her parents passed away when she was just 10 years old. Oh, she was the youngest of 4 siblings, okay folks? After the girl's parents died, she and her siblings moved to North Island in San Miguel. At 16 years old, Alejandra had her first child, but the relationship with the child's father didn't work out, and she ended up becoming a single mother. But Alejandra hadn't given up on love and continued searching for her Prince Charming. During this search, the woman ended up getting pregnant again and gave birth to her second child. Once again, the child's father abandoned the woman, and now she was alone with 2 children to raise. Alejandra continued in search of her great love, and 3 years after the birth of her second child, she became pregnant again, and this time gave birth to a girl named Zayda. Once again, the story repeated itself, as Zayda's father abandoned Alejandra shortly after the baby's birth. Even with all this abandonment, Alejandra seemed to be a happy woman. She worked washing clothes in a local river, and the little she earned was enough to provide the basics for her children. The children also got along very well, and Alejandra's eldest son helped his mother take care of his younger siblings. At that time, folks, people who knew the woman said she had a contagious joy. She was always in a good mood, took great care of her children, and was very attached to her family, especially to her older sister, named Elvira, with whom she talked every day. In fact, whenever she returned from work, Alejandra would stop by her sister's house with her children to have a coffee, and catch up on gossip. As I mentioned to you, Alejandra was a very happy woman, but she always complained about the lack of a partner. She had a deep resentment for being abandoned by the fathers of her children, but that didn't stop her from trying for another chance at love. And it was while looking for a nice guy to share her life with that she met a man named Mario Tucci Ical. Mario, folks, was 40 years old and worked at a palm oil production company. He was a very hard-working man, and this fact alone caught Alejandra's attention. She even mentioned to her sister Elvira that her husband was exactly the type of man she liked. In the woman's view, he was a tall, charming, vain, and good-smelling man. And I say in her view because I totally disagree, okay, folks? But you know how it is, right? Taste is not up for discussion. If she thought all that about this fraud, who am I to judge, right? And I say fraud because although Alejandra didn't know yet, Mario wasn't worth a single penny. While he was seeing Alejandra, he was still married and had 6 children. The man was also extremely violent and had even spent some time in jail for assaulting his wife. And it wasn't just a little slap, you know, folks. He ended up being arrested because he gave the mother of his children a beating and even sent her to the hospital. Fortunately, this man's wife got rid of this monster because Mario ended up falling in love with Alejandra and left the mother of his children to live with his mistress. Important information here, okay folks? First, as I told you, Alejandra didn't know he was married. He told her he was divorced and had 6 children. Second, although the mother of Mario's children was lucky that he left her alone, you'll notice that Alejandra was terribly unlucky that this guy fell in love with her. Well, anyway, the new couple, Alejandra and Mario, rented a house and moved in together. Obviously, the woman brought her 3 children with her. In the beginning, everything was just perfect. Mario really seemed to be the charming prince that Alejandra had always dreamed of finding. He was extremely affectionate with her, used to give her flowers and chocolates, and took very good care of Ale's children. But as time went by, the man began to show who he really was. He started to forbid Alejandra from going out to work. He claimed that she wanted to go to the river to wash clothes, just to keep an eye on the men swimming in the same stream. He also began to show a sickening jealousy between the woman and her children. He always said that she should pay attention to her husband, not the children, because he was the man of the house and the person who deserved all the attention in that home. The man also drank a lot, and it didn't take long for him to slap Alejandra for the first time. After that, it was all downhill. When the woman didn't do what Mario wanted, he would assault her with punches, kicks, and even went as far as to burn her with a cigarette. All of this happened in front of the children. He also began to insult the woman, calling her all sorts of profanities. He said she was ugly, that if he left her, she would never find another man again. He literally destroyed the woman. And I think all of this, folks, affected her a lot because Alejandra had been abandoned by the fathers of her children. And now Mario, whom she thought was her Prince Charming, kept saying she was ugly and that if he left, she wouldn't find another man. Personally, I think all of this really messed with her head, because it hit right on the wound, right, folks? The woman already had this trauma. It's so true that friends and family of Alejandra said that a few months after she moved in with Mario, her demeanor became that of a sad and unhappy woman, quite different from what it was before. The assaults became more and more frequent in that house, and the neighbors who used to break up the couple's fights stopped intervening because it had become routine, Mario would leave work, stop by the bar, have a few drinks, and when he got home, he would assault his wife, like any traditional abusive husband who thinks he married a punching bag to beat on, right? But now, we arrive at October 29, 2018. It seemed to be a normal day. Everything was calm and quiet at Alejandra's house until that night, when her neighbors started to hear the woman's cries for help. As I told you now, the neighbors weren't even bothered anymore because the couple's fights were routine. But after about half an hour of the woman screaming for help, the neighbors realized that Alejandra's cries were becoming increasingly distressing. It seemed like her husband was literally killing her. One of the neighbors then decided to call Elvira, Ale's older sister, and told her what was happening. When Elvira arrived at her sister's house, the screams had already stopped. Silence hung in the air, and she could see her brother-in-law leaving through the back door of the residence. The woman then knocked on the door and called for Alejandra, but she received no response. With the help of some neighbors, she forced her way into the house, and as soon as she entered, she was confronted with a human hand lying on the floor. There was blood everywhere. The house was completely dark, and with the help of her phone's flashlight, Elvira made her way to her sister's room to see what had happened. During this path, the woman found another hand, which belonged to her sister, lying on the floor, and before reaching her room, she came across Alejandra's 2 legs, leaning against the hallway wall. When she entered the room, Elvira was confronted with the most horrifying scene she had ever seen in her life. Her sister was on the bed, her face was cut in half, literally open here in the mouth area, with the sides separated from each other. But incredibly, the woman was still alive and trying to whisper something softly, as she no longer had the strength to speak. She was also without her hands and legs, which, as we know, were scattered around the house. Elvira began to scream in despair, asking for someone to call an ambulance to save her sister's life. The people who were in the house with her called emergency services, but the nearest ambulance was 72 kilometers away and took a long time to arrive. In the meantime, they recorded the woman's last moments of life, and these images were shared on the internet. I saw these images and honestly, I don't think I'll sleep tonight. I think they were the most horrifying and intense images I've ever seen. To give you an idea, the case became known as Miss Pac-Man. They made a comparison with Alejandra's condition, whose face was split in the middle around the mouth area, to the Pac-Man character, which has a wide open mouth, you know? In the videos that circulated on the internet, she tried to speak, and since her face was split in half, it was a horrible sight. Honestly, guys, it's very frightening. Well, the ambulance took about an hour to arrive at the scene, and by just a few minutes, they couldn't rescue the woman alive. That's because she passed away, well, just 5 minutes before the ambulance arrived. The paramedics said that Alejandra held on for about an hour and 20 minutes from the moment of the attack until her death. In other words, she suffered throughout that time. Well, the rescuers who attended the incident called the police and also collected all of Alejandra's remains and took them to the medical examiner's office. When the police arrived at the scene, they took statements from Elvira, the victim's sister, and also from the neighbors. And based on the reports, they issued an arrest warrant for Mario, who by then was already on the run. A few days later, the authorities received an anonymous tip that the wanted man was crossing the border into Mexico. He was carrying false documents and ended up being captured in Chiapas, 10 kilometers from the border between Guatemala and Mexico, but not before locals had tied the man up and beaten him. The population wanted to take justice into their own hands. So Mario suffered a lot at the hands of the locals before being captured by the police. After being captured, the man was held in preventive detention while Alejandra's family paid their last respects to the woman at her funeral. Ale's sister Elvira committed to taking custody of the nephews and said she would take very good care of them. Now for me, this is the heaviest part of all. During the interrogation, Mario confessed to the crime and said he didn't have a shred of remorse, that he was proud of what he did and would do it again because he was defending his own honor. He explained to the police that he found out that when he went out to work, Alejandra would bring a truck driver into the house with whom she was having an affair. He also said that on the day of the crime, his wife took a shower, put on perfume, and said she was going to her sister Elvira's house. When she left the house, the man followed his wife and saw the moment she climbed into the cab of a truck, where she stayed for about an hour. Mario went on to say that he even saw the truck's cab shaking and was sure that his wife was having fun there with another man. After witnessing this scene, he returned home disturbed. He was very angry with his wife and couldn't wait for her to get home to question her about the truck driver. When Alejandra got home, the two had a fight, but she kept insisting that she was with her sister and ended by saying that he must have mistaken her for someone else because she would never get into anyone's truck, that to do something indecent. After the argument, Alejandra went to bed saying she was sleepy and wanted to rest. Mario then took a machete, brought it to the bedroom, and placed it beside the bed. As soon as the woman fell asleep, he took off the shorts she was wearing. According to his statement, the reason for this was that he wanted to smell her private parts to find out if she had been with another man. And to me, that's very bizarre. It's sick, right, folks? And so he said he was surprised when he discovered that she wasn't wearing anything under the shorts, which for him was irrefutable proof that she had been out with another man and had even forgotten her lingerie in the truck's cab. With this certainty, he grabbed the machete and started delivering several blows against his wife, which were responsible for leaving her in the state that I already told you about and that I prefer not to repeat. Later, he completely changed his statement and said that he wasn't responsible for Alejandra's death, because he was possessed by evil entities at the time of the crime. Well, they always say that, right, folks? On November 9, 2018, Mario appeared in court for a preliminary hearing, which was quite controversial. To say the least, you see, folks, this was because the prosecution accused the man of femicide, and the judge in the case, a female judge, okay? She was very uncomfortable with this term, and said that all of this was just grandstanding. And because of the term used by the prosecution, she decided to end the hearing and reschedule it for a more appropriate time. The judge's position caused a great uproar among the population. Many said that she was covering up for the acts committed by Mario, and that the magistrate was not impartial and should be removed from her position. After all this backlash and public pressure, the judge withdrew from the case and a new magistrate was appointed to judge Mario's crime. On November 28, 2018, a new hearing took place with the new judge, and in his statement, Mario said that he attacked the woman out of jealousy. He said that he loved the woman very much and couldn't bear to see her with another man. He and the defense were eager to create a narrative of a crime of passion, where Mario had lost his mind for a few minutes, but soon after regretted what he had done. The problem is that during his testimony to the police, he said that he had no regrets, and that if given the chance, he would do it all over again. The fact that he took the machete to the room and left it by the bed also indicated that he planned the crime, and that it wasn't a sudden outburst. After hearing the considerations of the defense and the prosecution, the judge granted a period for the prosecution to build a stronger case against the man and for the defense to prepare for the final trial. During the investigations, the prosecution discovered that after taking Alejandra's life, Mario went to his ex-wife's house, the mother of his 6 children, and beat the woman, forcing her to give him all the money she had so he could escape the country. This case ended up being attached to Alejandra's case, and the prosecution was ready to request the maximum penalty. On January 30, 2019, social media went crazy over the case. This was because a video leaked of Mario inside the prison, celebrating his 44th birthday. In the video, you can see the other prisoners congratulating the man and calling him the Butcher of Tichek, alluding to the crime he committed. Butcher, right, because of the crime, and Tichek because of the city. That's the coachman. That one. Dance, my friend. Coachman buddy. All of this greatly helped the prosecution to prove that the crime committed by Mario was not a crime of passion and that he felt great pride in what he had done. Boot. Anyone who thinks the defense wasn't working is mistaken. That's because they ordered a medical examination to prove that Alejandra had intimate relations that day, and so it was done. The body was exhumed because the judge approved it, and the post-mortem examination was conducted, confirming that there was male genetic material in the victim's body. And to further disadvantage the prosecution, the defense also requested a DNA test to prove that the genetic material was not Mario's, and that indeed Alejandra was cheating on her partner. The DNA test was conducted, and it was indeed proven that the sample was not compatible with Mario's, and in this way, the defense wanted to justify their client's actions based on the woman's infidelity. All of this took a long time, folks, and the case ended up being judged only on March 8, 2022. That is almost 4 years after the crime. The trial lasted 6 days, and the defense and the prosecution clashed quite a bit, trying to prove their point of view. In the end, Mario, Tuti, and Chub was found guilty of taking his wife's life. However, his sentence is unknown, considering that due to all the media frenzy this case caused in the country, the judge chose to keep the man's sentence confidential. I even saw some places suggesting that he was sentenced to 25 years in prison, while other sources suggest that the sentence was actually 50 years, but the truth is that it's impossible to know, as the details were kept completely confidential and he might have even been sentenced to less than 10 years in prison. Unfortunately, we will never know, but what is known is that this decision caused an uproar among the population, who believed that perhaps justice was not served. But what do you think? What's your guess, regarding the man's sentence? How many years do you think he was sentenced to? Look, I would venture to say that I think the sentence was very small, you see, and that's why they kept all this under wraps. But I want to know your opinion, so leave it for me here in the comments. And for those who stayed with me until now, don't forget to leave your like, which really helps in promoting the channel. I'll stop here. A kiss to all of you, and see you in the next video.